And in elementary school in second grade, we had this piece of playground equipment that I have never seen matched to this day. It was spectacular. It was this castle thing. You know how they used to build playground equipment out of the big logs? Like the big giant Lincoln logs? Well, this thing looked like a big castle. And it was built and it had several levels, and back in second grade, it seemed like this thing went 100 feet in the air. And you could climb all the way to the top of this thing, and it was the most popular piece of playground equipment that there was. Well, I felt that day, back in second grade, that I wanted to climb to the top of the castle and see everything. And it was a lot of work, and you had to get past everybody. And there was this little girl that stood in my way. So you got to think of me as a second grader when I tell this story. And she was in my way, and I said, and her name was, let's call her Jenny Smith. I don't want to use actual names to protect the innocent. I said, Jenny, get out of my way. And she said, I'm not getting out of your way. So I did what every second grade boy does. I pushed her down. And she skinned her knee. And it was bleeding really badly. And I climbed to the top of the thing. I didn't care about her. I had something I had to accomplish. The problem was with Jenny Smith, or what do I just call her? Jenny Smith, was that my teacher was Mrs. Smith. Oh, yeah. There's the problem. You see the problem. And I got back down and I saw Jenny sitting there on the ground holding her skinned knee, and it was bleeding quite badly. I wasn't usually a bad kid, but I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just wanted her to get out of my way. Didn't she know I had places to be, and things to do, and castles to climb? And I looked at her as I came down, and I thought, oh my gosh, I am dead. Because this was back in the day when the teachers could paddle you. And that's what I was afraid of. I was afraid of getting a swat or a paddle. And, I was a good kid, and that never happened to me, but I was just terrified. I remember going to lunch after recess and looking at my tater tots. And folks, I love tater tots. I couldn't eat them because I was so nervous that Jenny was going to go tell her mom, who was my teacher, and that was going to be the end of me. She was going to take it out of me, and there would be no Josh Wagner left. All that people would know was that there were tater tots here for somebody. That was it. So I spent the whole rest. I went to class, and I was real quiet, and I watched, and finally nothing happened. And I came back to school the next day, and again, nothing happened. And eventually the teacher, about a week later, said, I know you feel bad about pushing Jenny down. And she said, I just want you to know that I'm not mad, and she's not mad. She understands that those things happen. And she forgave me. She said, I don't want you to be nervous, because apparently I looked nervous. I probably was huddled in the corner, rocking back and forth in some kind of a ball shape. But that's neither here nor there. People knew that when I didn't eat my potato tots, that there was a problem. The reason I bring up this story is because she had every right to be upset with me, my teacher. And so did her daughter. And I didn't know that they were such forgiving people. But in the second reading today, the second reading is really what I want to focus on. It says, owe nothing to anyone. Do not be in debt to anyone. You see, what I learned that day is I learned a great lesson about forgiveness. You see, forgiveness is really, really tough. But God has given us the grace to forgive. God has given us the grace to forgive the way that He forgives. So when people push us down, and we skin our knees, or our pride is hurt or wounded, we have the ability, just like Christ, whose pride was weak and hurt and wounded on the cross, that as they are driving the nails into His hands, He says, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. He forgives them. They don't ask for forgiveness. They don't ask for repentance. They don't say they're sorry. They're not even full of remorse. And yet, Jesus Christ continues to forgive them. See, St. Paul says, owe nothing to anyone. And so we are called as Christians that when we have been violated, when we have been hurt, when we have been wounded by someone else, even if we don't feel like it, we are called to instantly forgive them. We are called to forgive them even if they haven't asked for it. Now that is the Christian novelty. That is what is different and new and exciting about Christianity even to this day, because I tell you what, the world will not forgive you unless you pay them back. Unless you stand up and say in front of everybody, I'm sorry, unless you ask for it. See, God will forgive us instantly because He loves us that much. And why is it that we should forgive other people? It's not simply because Jesus tells us to. It's because we forgive them not only for them, we forgive people for ourselves. I don't know if anyone in here has ever held a grudge for more than a few months or a few years. I would wager that if I were to ask that question and everyone in this room would be honest, I bet you a lot of hands would go up. When we don't forgive somebody, when we hold something against them because of a little knee scrape or because someone has hurt us very badly, that is not something that is good for them, but it is certainly not something that is good for us. Because when we hold a grudge, we owe them our forgiveness. And when we hold a grudge, it is like holding poison inside of ourselves. That resentment and that anger and that hurt will foul and it will fester and it will eat us alive from the inside out. If we have a resentment or are holding a grudge, we forgive the other person not only for their good, but for ours. There are times in my life where I've had people, and you know what, I'm not perfect. I do this too. I'm saying this because I have to hear it myself. There are people in my life that I had not forgiven for years. There are people in my life that I have not forgiven who never asked for forgiveness. There are people in my life that I've held grudges and resentments toward. And the way that I've heard it said is when you hold a resentment towards someone, when you hold a grudge against someone, when you don't forgive someone, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. It is that detrimental to us. And you know what? The people that I've had to forgive in my life, sometimes they don't ask for it. Sometimes, a lot of times, they don't deserve it. But I tell you what, when I have forgiven them, when I have removed that debt between us, when I have forgiven that debt, by the grace of God, and this is what He teaches us, then no longer is there anything between me and God, and all of a sudden I begin to act differently toward that person. I begin to act differently toward myself. I begin to heal. And you know what? It sort of has a ripple effect, because when I begin to heal, when I remove that roadblock, when I stop drinking that poison of grudging and resentment, all of a sudden they can begin to heal too. I have noticed remarkable things when people forgive people. And sometimes that is the debt that we owe to them. And this is the law of love. You see, what Jesus tells us in the gospel today is recognize that our brothers and sisters have hurt us. There's nothing wrong with that. But go and forgive them. And maybe you can't go and directly forgive them. Maybe it's something you have to do in the confessional. I imagine that there are times when we have been Jenny Smith and we have been pushed down. And we know that that person is guilty. We know that they have harmed us. But you know what? Take the same lesson from Jenny and from Jesus and from Mrs. Smith, that we should forgive people. We should forgive them when they don't deserve it. We should forgive them when they don't want it. We should forgive them when they don't know that they've hurt us. We should forgive them for their own good, and we should forgive them for our own good. And in that way, the way that the resurrection touches all of us, that resurrection will touch the people in our lives. Owe nothing to anyone. If you owe an apology, make an apology. If you owe them forgiveness, which we owe them, give them forgiveness. Even if you can't make it face to face, you have to write a letter. You have to go to the confessional. You have to ceremonialize it some way. Maybe you have the courage to go up and say, I forgive you. I'm sorry for not forgiving you for so long. And I guarantee that that healing will begin to manifest itself in your hearts. That healing will begin to manifest itself in your family, in your church, in the places that you work, in the people that you meet. So that the love and the forgiveness that Jesus Christ has given to us